Happy to. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the Park and Recreation Commission, March 17th, 2022. It is 6:01 p.m. And Becky, could you please do the roll call?
Commissioner Cabrales.
Here.
Chair Emerson.
Here.
Commissioner Gutierrez.
Here.
Commissioner Lauman.
Here.
Commissioner Machado.
Here.
Commissioner Reisinger. I think I saw her pop on yet. I'll put her absent for now. And Commissioner Sandoval.
Here.
Thank you.
Do we have any public comment that we need to address?
We might.
Yeah.
We might. So I would go ahead.
Let me go ahead. Good evening, everyone. Viewers are welcome to provide public comment online through Zoom or by telephone at 669-900-9128. Meeting ID is 833-4004-9460. If you're watching this meeting through Zoom, please select the participants button and select raise hand if you wish to speak. If you are participating by telephone and wish to speak, please press *9. When it is your turn to speak, you will be notified by the host inviting you to participate. You will need to press *6 to unmute yourself if you're calling in by phone. Once you are unmuted, you will have 3 minutes to provide your comments. And we do have a raised hand. So give me just a second to grab my timer.
And just as a reminder to our participant, this is on items that are not on the agenda.
All right. All right, David, you have 3 minutes to go ahead and provide comment.
Becky, I don't think we're at the public feedback yet. I think we're at agenda amendments.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, members of the public, you will have an opportunity to do the
I apologize.
comment.
I thought we were ready to go.
No, that's fine. It's challenging on Zoom. Okay, are there any amendments to the agenda for this evening?
There are none.
Okay, so the first item I want to call is the approval of the regular meeting minutes of February 17th.
I move to approve. Oh, I'll second.
Great. Any public
However you want to
comment
record that.
Okay, saying none, I'll ask for a roll call vote for the approval of the minutes.
All right, Commissioner Cabrales.
Yes.
Chair Emerson.
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez.
Yes.
Commissioner Lauman.
Yes.
Commissioner Machado.
Aye.
And Commissioner Sandoval.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
All right, we're moving on to item number 2, which is the introductions, awards, recognitions, and presentations. So is there anything that anyone wants to share?
We don't have any awards, presentations, or recognitions at this time, and we'll introduce our guests later on when their item is ready.
Perfect. All right. So we'll move on to item number 3, which is regular open public comment for items not listed on the agenda. Just note that the Sun Valley Park is agendaized, so that if you want to comment on that, you can wait till we call when we discuss that.
All right. If you are watching this meeting through Zoom, please select the participants button and select raise hand if you wish to speak. If you are participating by phone, which we do not have anyone at this time, once it is your turn to speak, you'll be notified by the host inviting you to participate. Once you are unmuted, you will have 3 minutes to provide your comments. And I'm going to check in with our attendee who has his hand raised to see if he would like to speak now or wait till we get to the agenda item. All right. All right, David, if you can hear me, are you wanting to provide comment on this or the agenda item for Sun Valley?
Thanks, Becky. I would just like to chime in on the Sun Valley Park gazebo.
Okay.
So David, we are not taking public feedback for that item right now. We will be right after this portion is over. And
okay.
We have, so just to let you know, this is on items that are not on the agenda tonight. And tonight's agenda includes Sun Valley and Marin Bocce. So the item on Sun Valley is the very next item.
Okay, and I've done a number of Zoom, conferences, but I'm not seeing my face. But you're hearing me. Are you seeing me?
Yeah. No, none
not
of our
you.
none of our participants. We will be able to see their faces.
Yeah.
So
okay. All right. Okay. I'll wait. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. So we're going to move on to agenda item number 4, which is discuss the Sun Valley Park prohibited activities. And I'm going to call on the staff to go over the report that they shared with the commission, and that was listed publicly.
Thank you, Chair. Susan Andrade Wax. I am the Library and Recreation Director for the City of San Rafael. It's my pleasure to present this item tonight. As you may know, this item and another item were brought forward to the Park and Rec Commission last July. And the two items in regards to prohibited behavior at that time that were discussed was behavior at the wooden gazebo that is in the upper terrace of Sun Valley Park, and dogs off leash on the lower lawn area. Dogs are not allowed to be off leash by municipal code, and that activity had been reported as well. At that time, we had received an inquiry from a neighbor that is adjacent to the park in regards to their concerns and their experiences. I believe that email was forwarded to you today. That individual is not able to participate tonight. So that email that was shared with you outlines their concerns. Basically, what they observe being a neighbor of that area of the park, they've seen drinking of alcoholic beverages, smoking, partying going on, fires. And unfortunately, some of the activity has included vandalizing the adjacent neighborhood, the neighbors that back up to that area, including breaking glass, throwing trash and debris into their yards. The police department has been called several times in regards to that, but because of the line of sight of where this gazebo is located, it's really difficult to see. And often when patrols have been called, by the time they get there, the activity has been disbanded. The other item that's in the agenda report that was discussed at length last July was dogs off leash. We had a pretty robust conversation and engagement with the community at the park last year, twice. The second time being in fall, when an off-leash dog program proposal was being considered. That type of program has been very successful in a variety of cities, including Petaluma, where specific hours at each of their parks allow dogs to go off leash, and then the remaining time it reverts back to being utilized by humans instead. Being proposed and sharing with the community, the residents thought it was a wonderful idea. Their main concern about implementing that program, even as a pilot program, would be if it was the only park the city was pursuing, it would create like a vacuum, and everyone in the area would come to Sun Valley and use it as an off-leash dog program more than what they're currently using it. So the feedback from the community at that time is, we're good. We don't want to entertain the pilot program at this time. We may want it to be considered in the future, maybe when other parks are being considered, but at this time, we do not want that to be considered. What we'd like is to have new signage stating that dogs should not be off leash. And if that new signage could be installed when the park renovation happens or the playground renovation happens this year. So at the conclusion of when that renovation project on the playground ends, that's when we would be installing new signage around the park, making sure that people know that. And the new signage would also include that when people see dogs off leash, they're to notify Marin Humane Society. They are the ones by contract for our area that is responsible for patrolling and enforcing dogs off leash. It is not our local police department. And many people are confused by that. So they often call the wrong agency. And they do, just so you know, Marin Humane Society was brought in and we had a lot of conversation with them, and they do conduct regular patrols. But again, when they're out there, people see them. Often people put their dogs back on leash or they leave. So tonight's item is not going to be discussing off-leash dogs in the park at all. What we are really focusing on is the wooden gazebo. I'm going to share my screen just for everybody's benefit to make sure we're all talking about the same thing, because there's another picnic area in the park and I don't want there to be any confusion. Before I do that, I also mentioned in the staff report that we did notify the public by mail. We let them know that this item was going to be discussed tonight. We let them know how they could communicate via email or participate in tonight's meeting to provide feedback. And also that letter that they received included pictures. So they would be clear that we were not talking about the other picnic area being removed. This is a older gazebo. And so I'm going to share my screen right now. So can everyone see that? Fantastic. So the first slide shows the Sun Valley lawn area. And I'm going to cursor over. This is the current newer picnic area that was added several years ago. We're not talking about removing that one. What we are talking about is up in this terraced area on the left photograph. If you see kind of a berm tucked in behind there, there is actually a wooden gazebo and kind of a terraced area. So I'm going to go to the next slide. Let's see if I can go to it. There we go. It's a little delayed. So the red arrow shows you where the gazebo is actually located. And as you can see, you can't see it. You can't see it from the lawn, even when you get closer to it. The gazebo is on the right-hand side. This was taken last summer. As you can see, it's not very green right now. And there was a barbecue that was in the middle of the wooden gazebo. The barbecue has been removed because of potential fire danger to that wooden structure, but the wooden structure is sturdy. It is not, it is structurally sound and it's not going to fall down on its own, but it is an all wooden structure. Let me go to the next slide. And this really gives you an idea of looking into, I'm going to move my pictures. This is the fence area of going into somebody's backyard. So that's how they access into that area. And as you can see, the long fence that goes adjacent to this area, that's one of the neighbor's houses. It's not necessarily the one that's on the left-hand side, but this is another neighbor. That fence is over 6 feet tall. And even if the fence was much taller than that, you could still throw things up and over that fence. So standing on this area, you can easily see into their backyard and throw anything you want. And so this is the impact that the gazebo and the activity is having, is really on these neighbors. Other neighbors would not know about the activities going on unless they went up there and saw it for themselves or overheard it. But this is really kind of the impact and where it is located. So, okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen because we don't need to see that anymore. I can bring that back up as we go forward if people want to talk about it and take a look at it again. But that is the gazebo. So tonight, what we are looking for is inviting public feedback. We have heard from the adjacent neighbors and we know how they feel. That's the reason why this item is being brought forward to you. But it is a neighborhood park amenity, and therefore the neighborhood has the opportunity tonight to share their thoughts. A few emails that we've received outlining their concerns or their feedback have been shared with you and are part of the public record. As you probably noticed, some of them talk about off-leash dogs. They didn't really focus on the gazebo, and that's okay, but we still shared it with you. And tonight they will also have the opportunity. Please know that staff does not have a recommendation tonight to whether it should be removed or stay. It's completely up to the commission and the feedback that they received tonight as to whether A, you want to take any action at this time, or if you want to take action later, if you want to wait to see if there's additional activity that goes on. So the only thing that I will share with you that is if the park was designed today, and I think one of the emails you received was from actually a local architect, where these features exist, staff would not recommend putting any type of active feature or passive feature tucked in the back of a park that could not be seen in plain view. It's unsafe. And unfortunately, because there's no line of sight, any type of patrol going by cannot see into the park. If they can't see us, we can't see them. So where this is located, unfortunately, has caused some of the behavior we think facilitates it. We would not recommend putting it in where it is right now, but it's been there. And so, you know, for decades from what I've been told. So I'm not quite sure the date of it. Somebody asked me, I would tell you that my guess is it's been there since the 60s, maybe the 50s. I could be wrong. It could be a lot earlier than that, but based on the architecture and kind of how it's put together, it looks reminiscent of the 60s, early 70s, but I could be wrong on that. So if there's any questions of the commission, I invite them now before we go to public feedback, if there is any.
So commissioners, do you have any questions for staff about this structure or about this agenda item? I myself do have a question, and I'll go ahead and let me invite my colleagues, my fellow commissioners, to ask questions first. Mark, do you have anything?
No, I think we discussed this a while ago in regard, and you know, I read the letter from the neighbor, and I think the neighbor kind of takes the impact of that being there. So I kind of feel for them. So is what I'll say.
Okay, Ariel, do you have anything?
No questions. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Cabrales.
I was just wondering if the new plan addresses that area in any way, or is that left off of the new park plan?
That's a great question. So the Park and Recreation Master Plan, the consultants went to every park and will be providing an assessment of what they saw and recommendations for improvements. We haven't seen those recommendations yet, but again, tonight, depending on what action you take, you could say that you would want to wait till after you see what those recommendations are. One of the emails that you did receive is from a local architect that did work on the park previously, and some of the items that they did remove from the park from that area for the reasons that are outlined tonight.
Stacy, I see that your hand is raised.
Thank you. I think Kayla, you just asked one question that I was going to ask, but the other question I had was specifically you were looking for an action from the commission, or we're receiving the report and to consider further?
So the commission, after receiving feedback tonight, will have a variety of options it can explore. It could explore to say, thank you so much, we accept the report and we're not doing anything. It could say, we want it to stay. The commission could make a recommendation to remove it based on public feedback, or it could say, we're accepting the report tonight and we'd like to wait for the Park and Recreation Master Plan to be completed and see what their recommendations are and receive additional, see what the summer brings and see if some of the same behavior is experienced. So we're not, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, we are not steering you down one path or the other. We are extremely objective in this, and whichever direction the commission would like to take based on public feedback is what we are supporting you to do.
Okay, and then I have another question. That's who's the final decision maker? And then also, there are a lot of trees and shrubs around the gazebo. Is there a reason to remove that, regardless of whether the gazebo stays or goes? Because I'm wondering if people would congregate in that area anyway, if it's out of sight.
That's a really good question. Some of the things that we could do with staff, and just so I'm very, I know I alluded to it in the staff report, but for the people that are listening tonight, the staff that went out there to take a look at it was the director of public works and the battalion chief from fire. So it was looked at from a structural standpoint, a park standpoint, because that's under the purview of the Department of Public Works. And then the battalion chief wanted to look at as a fire hazard. And his biggest concern was remove that barbecue from underneath it because it literally sat right in the middle of it. So that's a bad thing to do. So that was already removed. But I'm sure we could also go in there with park maintenance and maybe clear some additional landscaping away from it if there's a potential danger there as well. But I do know that some of those trees are actually in the neighbors' yards that hang over as well. So it's not just all that vegetation is not just the parks.
Okay, thank you. And then I see Commissioner Gutierrez, you have your hand raised. Did you have a question that came up after?
I do. Sort of dovetailing off what Kayla asked, specific to the Sun Valley playground remodel, there's nothing planned for the grassy areas, is that correct?
That's correct. The project that is scheduled for this year is a playground renovation. So the removal and the replacement of that playground, and then improvement of the ADA pathways to and from that area.
Thank you. And then I think we also have Commissioner Sandoval. Do you have any questions for staff on this item?
No questions for staff for me.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lawman did ask a question, and I want to make sure I answered it because it got in there and we skipped over it. The ultimate decision is the Park and Rec Commission. That is under your purview to make the decision on what to do.
Great. So my question is really around the history of the gazebo. There was one email that alluded that it predated the park and went back to silent film days. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'd like to have more information about the historical aspect of this gazebo as a park feature, because I think we would need to know that before we made a decision.
Yeah, at the time, we do not have any historical information that backs that claim up. And the information that we have found in regards to all of our parks and rec master plans does not include that. Phil Abbey is the only person who's worked on that park who recently talked about some of the elements that were up there, but we don't have any information dating back to when it was installed and its historical value. There doesn't appear to be any historical value attached to it because of what the time is that it was installed, believed to be when it was installed.
So was it believed to be installed before the park came or after the park, or, you know, when the park was installed?
The structure, according to our director of public works, the structure looks like it was built in the 60s. So I would assume that that's not during the silent film era. Now, that doesn't mean that Charlie Chaplin wasn't alive in the 60s and didn't walk back up there. I mean, that's true. So, you know, there could be some truth in what was shared with us. It's just, it doesn't make that gazebo date back to those times.
Got it. All right, so I think that Susan's been pretty clear about what our options are, which is someone can call for a motion that we remove the structure, or that we don't do anything, or that we wait for more information. And so I think that that's our role, is to decide what to do. I do think that, you know, I can see that this is I'm sorry, go ahead, Commissioner Cabrales.
I guess my other question would be, do we know what the cost is of removing it?
According to the director of public works, they said it would be nominal. It would just be staff going up there and removing it. It really wouldn't take very much. But I know, I don't want to get too far ahead of us. I know we have public feedback that we need to still receive before moving forward with any kind of decision. And you might have some other questions based on the feedback that you receive.
Sure, and I just want to make sure I understand the order. Are you looking for a motion from the commission now and then having public comment, or would you like to have public comment first?
This is the time that you would request public feedback, and Becky can help facilitate that. And once that closes, once we've heard from all of them, the public feedback that you will receive might require you to ask staff questions for clarification. But once public comment closes, then you would move on to another discussion as to what you'd like to do. And then hopefully that will culminate in a motion and a vote.
Thank you. At this time, if there's no other comments from the commission, I would ask Becky to get public comment.
Great, thank you, Chair. If you're watching this meeting through Zoom, please select the participants button and select raised hand if you wish to speak. When it is your turn to speak, you will be notified by the host inviting you to participate. Once you are unmuted, you will have 3 minutes to provide your comments. And we do have a few attendees, and I am currently not seeing any raised hands.
I think David had originally.
Oh, there we go. David's back up. All right, great. All right, David, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, and you'll have 3 minutes to provide your comments. We have a little delay here.
By chance, has he muted himself?
Possibly, yeah. I'm clicking ask to unmute. Are you able to unmute yourself there, David? Oh, there we go.
Sorry.
Right.
My bad. My bad. I apologize that you're not able to see me. I'm not sure why that is. I live above Sun Valley Park. My property is right above Sun Valley Park. And over the last 35 years, I have had incidents involving teenagers, you know, late at night, drinking, breaking bottles. I've called the police, but it's not been that big of a deal. So I do appreciate my neighbors' concerns as they've been affected, but I do know that the gazebo has been utilized by many families over the decades for birthday parties, barbecues, and I understand that the barbecue has been eliminated, and that's a good thing. That's just my 2 cents worth.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. All right, commissioners, we have an opportunity to discuss this more before we make a formal motion.
Becky, is there anybody else with a hand up?
No, Susan, we don't have anyone else with their hand up.
That's what I'm seeing. Okay.
Thank you.
I guess just speaking for myself is that I don't feel like we have enough information to make a decision at this time. We have different opinions of neighbors and we don't have a ton of public feedback about this issue. So I would recommend personally putting it off until we have the master plan figured out and seeing how that affects the park. Does anyone else want to share any other ideas or any other comments?
Chair Emerson?
Yes, Mark.
So I would actually move to remove the gazebo. And I understand Mr. Donahue said there's not that much of an issue with it over the decades, but it seems like that the neighbor that's directly next to it has a lot of issues with it, and that families can still use the other picnic area, the other covered area that has been built there for those reasons. And my feeling is that you know, I mean, things have changed over the years, and you have, there's no way to be able to, for the police officers to be able to see what's going on back there if something does happen. And so, I mean, it can be throwing bottles, it can be, it can be other things too, though, right? It can be a lot of things can go on back there, and that, you know, that just aren't good. So my feeling, I would make the motion to remove the gazebo.
Thanks, Mark. Do we want to have more discussion before moving to like a formal motion? Because it looks like Commissioner Sandoval is raising his hand.
Well, my comments really quick, because Commissioner Machado pretty much said what I was going to say. I think, you know, it comes down to safety, and like it's a dangerous location. Police can't see it, so I would remove it personally.
I thought I saw Commissioner Cabrales for a second, a hand raised. And then we have Stacy.
So I guess my thoughts are that just removing the structure doesn't actually solve the problem of a sort of tucked away place where people are used to gathering and doing things, right? So I would hope that there would be something to sort of replace that as well, not just tearing it down. I feel like tearing it down might not solve the actual entire problem. So then that leads me to sort of agree with Chair Emerson that we maybe wait to see if the master plan comes up with another way to use that space, so that it's replaced with something that isn't conducive to just a spot where people might gather and continue to do the same things they've always been doing.
Chair Emerson, before we continue, can you just officially say public comment is over? I'm sorry, I forgot to prompt that.
Yeah. Public comment has been closed.
Okay,
and so we're now discussing our motions and our actions on this item.
Thank you.
Stacy.
Yeah, I feel a little conflicted because I think, you know, I think Commissioner Machado has a good point. It's really important for the city to be a good neighbor. On the other hand, I also feel like it's tough to demolish city assets when the impact is on a single neighbor and not on a larger neighborhood. And I'm also concerned that because it's a low visibility spot, that activity is going to happen anyway. Commissioner Cabrales, you took my point there. So I'm curious to know, again, I asked about, I know I haven't been there recently, but you kind of go up the hill, and is there any way to make it more visible? I'm just thinking of the long-term plan that really isn't as much about the structure as about a place to tuck away and hide. So I don't know where I stand just yet.
Well, there was one suggestion to fence the area and make it a dog park, which I thought was humorous, but I mean, you know, it's important public comment. But do you guys have any feedback, Susan, on the long-term plan for the area if the structure was removed?
So if the structure was removed right now, I think two things. Phil Abbey, who is one of the individuals who submitted public feedback via email, again, he's one of the city's architects who's worked on several of the parks, including that one. They have master planned that and added elements to that park before. And at the conclusion of the Park and Recreation Master Plan, there will be a variety of improvements that are recommended, but there will also be a priority setting session, because I'm sure, you know, we're going to have a million things listed and there's going to be, they all have to be number one. So they will be prioritized. I'm not sure how high that element will be prioritized over maybe some more utilized parks by the general community. But again, at the end of the Park and Rec Master Plan, any type of recommendations or assessments will be public knowledge, and you'll be able to review that and make suggestions.
Okay, I see we have Commissioner Gutierrez and Commissioner Lawman. I'm not sure who raised their hand first, but you're no longer have a raised hand, but you do.
Thank you. I would lean towards removal. You're correct, Stacy, in that it sort of directly impacts just the neighbors. So it's a small group, but it does impact others. They leave bottles and needles and other stuff behind. I've never allowed my children in that area. It's whether it would continue without that. Yeah, I don't know. You're right, Kayla. I think you're right. Teenagers will find nooks and crannies, but it sure does help when there's sort of little benches built in and a roof and things that make them feel like they can hide a little easier. My question, Susan, right now I'm curious. I understand what you're saying about the prioritization once the master plan's done, but is there any risk that they remove it and it just sits kind of derelict area, like fenced off with caution tape for 6 to 12 months? Or when they tear it down, does it really get all removed and it's just dirt, and it's all cleaned up and everyone can go there?
My assumption is that when it gets removed, the whole thing goes back to exactly what the surrounding area looks like. It is dirt and grass, grass when it's raining during the cooler season, and obviously, we do weed abatement up there when it's warmer. But that area would be left as is for now. And then pending the Park and Recreation Master Plan, any recommendations for improvements would be forthcoming. Because that is an underutilized area. And I just wanted to add what's really challenging about that area. We just talked about replacing the playground in the lower area, right? And one of the requirements of that per capita grant from the state is making sure it has ADA pathways to and from it. There is no accessible pathway to this amenity. And like I said before, there's many reasons why we wouldn't put it there today. We couldn't put it there today without making it accessible. And for anybody who's ever walked up there, you would obviously notice that. The only thing that we can do in the interim, depending on what you want to do, the first thing that I'm going to recommend is, and I can share my screen one more time to show you what I'm talking about. I don't know how much this is going to help. I have to go back out there and really look at it to see if it will create any line of sight, but I'm going to show it to you right now if I can bring it back. So let me see if I can get back to the first slide. I'm trying to. This is not great. Sorry about this. It must be some kind of, let me see if I can, okay, here we go. Okay, so what I want to show you, these trees right here on the left slide, these trees right here, I don't know if we recommended, bringing up the canopy, if you could see up there. I have a really bad feeling that I would have to make those look like toothpicks in order to see behind it. I don't think even if we remove this, you could see over this berm right here, but I'm going to go back to this other picture and show you what I mean. Here's a little closer. As you can see, it's tucked way back there. I think we could remove some of this vegetation off the tree, but I'm not sure how effective it would be. But we should probably do that no matter what. If we can do it, we should do it, because if the gazebo's back there or not, any type of line of sight into that back corner would be helpful to mitigate or prevent any activity from going on back there. Unwanted activity.
Right. Is there any risk that there could be lawsuits because it's not ADA accessible, or is that sort of just, it's so old?
There's always an opportunity for anyone to either lodge a complaint or file a suit in regards to accessibility issues with any of our facilities. And this is, obviously, if it was the only picnic shelter, my guess is, and I haven't spoken to the architect that did the new picnic shelters, but my guess is the reason why those new picnic areas were added was because this one was not accessible to the public.
Got it. And then just one more sort of comment, I guess, is that it seems like that, I think it was Abby, what's his last name? First name? Phil.
Phil Abbey.
It seems like in his email, he talks a lot about how they did recommend removing it, and they just didn't because costs got too high. So I suspect, although I could be wrong, that the next master plan or the master plan is going to probably make the same recommendation. And for that reason, I would vote to take it down. But I know there's no motion yet. I just
No, thank you. Any more discussion on this item?
Yeah, I'm just curious, do any like summer camps end up using that, or is it ever used by anybody? Because it seems to me like there's a need for sort of covered outdoor space these days. I mean, you know, just for COVID reasons, but nobody has used it that way even during this time. Is that right?
I would not say that that is correct an assumption. I would say that as many, I would say people have used it for a variety of reasons. It is a picnic shelter. I'm sure that there have been some appropriate uses of that picnic shelter over the last 30, 40 years. Really, that's never the concern. The concern was because of the location, it helps to facilitate behavior that doesn't want to be seen. And therefore, that type of activity also occurs there. The picnic area is down below on that second terrace area by the playground and the lawn area were added in recent times and are also extremely well used.
Any more questions from the commission before we could entertain a motion? I know people have discussed some motions. Please motion away.
I will move that the city removes that from the park, from Sun Valley Park.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion on the motion before we move to a vote? I will say from my perspective is that it is an existing asset, and I still don't feel like we have enough information. We have one neighbor, and I do feel for that neighbor, but I do think it's probably part of some of the unique character of that park that has a lot of memories for people in that neighborhood. And so I'm just not sure is where I get the safety concern. So that's just my piece, and I will go ahead and call for the vote unless anyone else wants to comment.
I would just like to know then if I kind of feel the same as you just commented, is there, I haven't done this before in this situation, is there a way to, would I just abstain from that vote, or would I
you could make a friendly amendment to the motion to postpone, or you could vote no.
So usually when you have a motion on the floor, you take a vote. If it doesn't pass, then you can make another motion for a different action. So you have a motion and a second. So if there's no more discussion, then Chair, can you solicit the roll through Becky, please?
Sure, let's call for a vote.
All right, Commissioner Cabrales.
No.
Chair Emerson.
No.
Commissioner Gutierrez.
Yes.
Commissioner Lauman.
No.
Commissioner Machado.
Yes.
And Commissioner Sandoval.
Yes.
Like we have 3 no's and 3 yeses.
Motion does not pass.
Does not pass.
Stacy, did you want to comment, or do you want to make an alternative motion?
I had an additional question, and I don't know if I missed this, but was there an opportunity to like talk to the neighborhood association first? Did they give any feedback? Okay.
We did. So I'm sorry, I wasn't clear on that. So last year when this item came forward to you in July, the HOA was notified that this item was coming to you along with the off-leash dogs at your July 15th meeting in 2021. They were noticed through the HOA. And then we had subsequent meetings with them to talk about the off-leash dog program, because most of the conversation was around that, not so much the gazebo. People felt like, yeah, it's a fire hazard, remove it. You know, they really, honestly, they didn't really feel strongly about keeping it. They were kind of yielding to the neighbors who really were impacted by it. But we did tell them at that time that this meeting specifically, it was going to be brought back to the commission in either February or March, and that the entire neighborhood would receive a written notification through us, not just through the HOA. We wanted to make sure not to assume. So they all received notification, including the head of the HOA, who wasn't also able to be here tonight. He's away for work, but they do know that the item is being discussed tonight.
Thank you. Just to follow up on that, I think Chair Emerson made a point about the value to the neighborhood in a different way. And I'm inclined to remove the structure, but I just wonder if we want to solicit a little more feedback from other neighbors.
Again, we could do it. We can do whatever the commission wants, but 400 letters were sent out. So this wasn't just, 10 people that are surround the park. This is more than what the city normally does. The requirement in community development for projects is 300 feet. We exceeded that. So intentionally, we exceeded that.
Thank you.
So we can do whatever you want, but we would just need another motion tonight to determine what that next step is that you'd like to take.
Can I just make a quick comment? I would just say that, excuse me, Chair. Is it okay?
Go ahead. Oh yeah, please do.
So I would just say, if I were the property owner next to the park, I mean, I've been dealing with this for a while now, and I've been going to the city and being a good citizen. My feeling is that we should have their back, and not the backs of the people that are causing the pain. So that is what I'll say.
In regards to the notification, to be honest with you, when we sent them out, we received all the emails that you received, with the exception of one of those emails, in rapid fire. So we know that they received them because the feedback that we did get quickly.
Yeah. And just for the record,
I received it. It was very clear, and like didn't look like junk mail. It was very clear that it was for us to open and read. Color pictures. I think everyone within any kind of distance from the park had ample opportunity to either save it or come and not save it. Yeah, from the perspective of notification, it was done.
Thank you, Ariel. And I do believe in your packet you have a copy of that letter that was sent to them. So
yeah, and just for the record, I mean, we did get an email from the neighbor, and I feel for that neighbor, but we also got other emails saying save the gazebo, and we also have a resident here saying that he would rather have the gazebo stay. So I don't think we have an overwhelming amount of public information to make a decision is where I stand. But I've already told you where I stand. I'm going to go ahead and look for some alternative motions from the commission about what to do about this important issue.
Could I move that we wait until the master plan has come out, and then if it says that it should be removed, that we make that one of the priorities to do it in a sooner way?
So the motion is to wait until wait to review the recommendations and priorities set forth by the master plan and prioritize this if this is a recommendation from the master plan. Does that sound more?
Because it sounds like it's low hanging fruit in that it doesn't cost much to remove. So it could be one of the things that we would address in the master plan and in one of the first rounds, because it's not based on money, right? That would be what I would.
So I think I hear what you're saying. I think the recommendation to wait until the process for the development of the Park and Recreation Master Plan has concluded, to wait for those results to take next action. I think that's prudent, if that's what I'm hearing the consensus is. I think prioritizing it is maybe a little too soon, and is not under this group's purview yet. The steering committee will be weighing in on that based on public feedback, and there's a whole process as to how those things are prioritized. But I can, with your motion, you could say that this area is of high priority to the commission. I do think it would be too premature to say that this should be the highest priority on the list, not knowing what that list is going to contain.
Right. Yeah. And I guess what I would say is that because we're just about to do this very broad review of what the community needs are, if we're not getting a lot of response right now, then maybe waiting and seeing if we get more response from this, all the surveys that are going to be coming out. And then that might give more information as to where this falls in the level of importance to the entire neighborhood.
In terms of the CIP, we wouldn't really have to wait for the CIP to follow the master plan, because we have authority to request removal at this time, right? So it'd just be another action by the commission. Right, because this is not a, the funding is not required in order to remove it. It is not part of the CIP, and it does not require council action. So the commission can do whatever it wants, or it can make a motion to table it until further information. I will say, because of the location of the amenity, even in a community-wide survey, you're not going to get people, I don't believe you're going to get people talking about the gazebo through the questionnaires, because we're not going to go out there in a citywide questionnaire or survey and specifically ask about one amenity in a park. So whether or not it comes up through that feedback is, I would say you're going to be hard pressed to get it. The most effective way to get any type of feedback about a specific amenity is to do what we've been doing. And so we can do it again. It can be done again. So don't hesitate to ask us to do it again at a later date. That's fine, but that's really what it needs to take. It is a neighborhood park. It's a neighborhood amenity, and therefore the neighborhood would be invited to provide feedback again.
Okay, I want to get everyone's comments, but I do think that Commissioner Cabrales has a motion on the table. Is there anyone who wants to second that motion, or does the motion die before we move on to more discussion? And just, can we repeat the motion, which is to wait for the recommendations for the master plan and then revisit once we have more information about what the master plan recommendation is, including feedback or lack of feedback, but expert recommendations about our parks.
Can we hear Commissioner Gutierrez's comment first?
Sure.
I was just going to say that if that motion passes, which, I mean, you know, my vote, but that letter of the person who did want to keep it mentioned that the city could do a better job of maintaining it. So I kind of just want to have that on the record that I agree with I guess Doug Kowalski, that if we're not going to vote to remove it, that I want to be on the record as saying it should be better maintained and not have broken glass everywhere and trash cans overflowing, which is probably also partially because it's hard to get to. It's not necessarily always being emptied. So I would just echo his comments on that. He says he wants to keep it. But I would say if it's going to be kept, that we could do better.
Sorry, the joys of being at home. Thank you. Any other comments or any seconds on the motion or an alternative motion? Can I call for a second, or should we move on to another motion? I, as the chair, can I second her motion? I can do that, or no, not as the chair, I can. I will second her motion. Can we call for a vote on the postponing of until we have the master plan?
Okay, Commissioner Cabrales?
Yes.
Chair Emerson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
No.
Commissioner Lauman?
Yes.
Commissioner Machado?
No.
And Commissioner Sandoval?
No.
Okay. And this is why you always have commissions with odd amounts. So unfortunately, we don't have it tonight. So unless there's another motion, I'm going to offer one up at this point, but it sounds to me that you've got a commission right now that wants to take action one way or the other instead of just accepting the report and waiting. So I'm not quite sure where to go with this because we absolutely need direction. So neither motion is passed.
What comes with accepting the report and waiting?
Your motion was pretty much that.
Susan, would they be able to request that it comes at a meeting sooner when we have an odd number to get some direction? Is that? I'm just thinking of how ways to move forward.
Yeah, so you could, there could be a motion on the table to say you want to bring it back in 2 months. And by that time, we should have preliminary information back from the survey, the statistically valid survey. It will not include this element. I really don't see it. So what's going to be important, and the information that I think we're going to have back sooner than 2 months, will be the architect's assessment of that park and
Susan,
recommendation.
I'm sorry, can we also ask that you guys go back to the homeowners association with the specific ask around the gazebo instead of the dog park in that time? Is that something that could occur? I mean, I
can't. That's what that notification was. It let them know that this was the only item that was being discussed.
Okay.
We can do it again, and we would do it again. So to be very honest, if you say, bring this, we're directing staff to bring this item back in 2 months, pending additional information from the architect's assessment as part of the Park and Rec master plan, because we will have that. And at that time, if this is brought back for your consideration again, we will re-notify that neighborhood again.
Susan, do we also have the option, because I know in the coming months, we're going to be conducting community outreach at that park to get feedback on the playground improvements. Mm-hmm. Perhaps we could work a question on this into that, because I have a feeling we might get more people showing up to give feedback on the playground. We could work this question into that meeting and see what people say.
And that is why she's going to be your new director. Excellent. Brilliant. So yes,
we're lucky. We got lucky that there's a lot of plan for this park.
I was given a lot of superlatives, but the answer would be yes, you could do that. And I have a feeling it's probably going to line up, maybe not in 2 months, but probably by June is my guess, Catherine. Don't we think that we're going to have an architect and a design? Yeah. So I think, yeah, I think she's absolutely right. The moons will align and those items could be correlated to happen at the same time. And people will come out for the playground, and you will have a big group that shows up, and therefore we should be able to receive feedback on both amenities.
So, can I make a motion? I would move to ask staff to solicit feedback from the neighborhood in an in-person forum and bring it back to this commission for a decision.
I second that.
Right. Commissioner Cabrales?
Yes.
Chair Emerson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lauman,
Yes.
Commissioner Machado,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandoval.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed.
Thank you, everyone. I know that was a difficult decision, but again, there was no clear path, and I think you found one. And Catherine, thank you for your assistance. And I think that's a great suggestion. So staff will bring it back when those two items start coming down the same path together. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone. We're going to move on to the next agenda item, which is the Marin Bocce Federation annual report. Thank you for your patience. We'd like to
welcome.
I'd like to introduce, okay, so we've got a long line of introductions here. So Steve, I'm going to introduce Steve Mason. He's our Senior Recreation Supervisor, and then you can introduce your staff and we'll go from there.
Good evening, everybody. I think you all know Damien. He presented last month before you, but Damien Sanholm is our Recreation Supervisor, and he'll be introducing the bocce. Go ahead, Damien.
Good evening, Commissioners. Tonight, the Marin Bocce Federation is here to share their 2021 annual report. I will now turn it over to General Manager Jessica Libyan and Board President Brian Johnson to deliver the report. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Damien. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can do our PowerPoint presentation. Wait, did I get that right? There we go. All right. Brian, are you doing this one or am I?
This one was yours.
Okay. So as you guys may know, or you should know, if you don't, it's okay. Since 1994, the Marin Bocce Federation has been in partnership with the city of Santa Fe. We provided public bocce ball facilities and a program in Albert Park. We are a nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting the sport of bocce ball for all local citizens to enhance their social and physical well-being. We have 10 premier state-of-the-art bocce courts that operate year-round, serving over 5,000 visitors per month during the peak season, which is March through November.
Great. And I hope you all noticed on that last page, and up in the upper right-hand corner, our new logo, which just is fresh off the production.
Yep.
The pandemic, of course, affected everybody pretty substantially. Being an outdoor recreation facility, I think we got off easier than many organizations. We have 2 indoor courts and 8 outdoor courts. For much of the pandemic, we had to keep the 2 indoor courts closed, or it had to be masked use. But the outdoor courts were fairly open, and it gave people a good opportunity for outdoor recreation. We had to cancel a fair amount of the leagues, the entire spring season from last year, and we had limited about 75% of our teams coming back for the next 2 sessions. We have 3 9-week sessions during the course of the year. But we did benefit from some of the COVID relief funds that were made available through the US government as well as the state of California. The total for last year was about $62,000, which helped offset some of that loss in revenue. A few of the highlights from the pandemic. We did in the spring, we didn't feel comfortable bringing back all of the leagues. By the way, the spring season starts next week for this year. And so at this time last year, it wasn't quite comfortable, but we did do a mini league, which was limited number of players. So there were no more than 3 people on a team rather than the normal 6 to 10 that you'd get. So it was much less density. And those were successful. We did those only during the daytime. And then for the summer and fall sessions, we came back and we had about 75% of our teams come back. We did offer a discount on summer in order to entice some of the teams back. We did lower the fees for that. And that was helpful. So we got through the pandemic. I think as we look at the financials later, you'll see that our revenue dropped quite a bit. The pandemic relief aid, the assistance really stepped in. And we are now looking pretty good for this year. Thank you, Jessica.
Yeah. So for 2021, we had a pretty good participation. We had 5 in-house tournaments, 3 United States Bocce Federation tournaments. That's pretty normal for us. The facility was reserved for 15 contracted events. Contracted events are usually where they reserve the entire facility, and it goes anywhere from 100 to 300 people. So we had about 15 of those. It's not as full as we normally are. Our open play, which is usually 4 days a week, attracted 100 players a week from June to December. And teams were allowed to rent courts and play with a maximum of 8 players per court. So usually it's 10 to 12, but we were able to get 8. That was about 45% of reservations for the total bocce rentals was team play. These are just some pictures for you guys that we were able to get back for people enjoying themselves during the pandemic. This was huge for them to be able to get out there and be with their friends, do some events. This is a team building one in the bottom left. That's a bunch of realtors. Those are some of our top right, our teams from the leagues, and I'm not sure who that is in the bottom right, but yes. Our 2022 leagues, that's supposed to say 2021. The league participation is now at capacity. So moving into 2022, we just now are back to full teams and full leagues. So that's 160 teams plus a wait list. Our open play is full with the added offering of clinics and lessons. So we've been doing a lot of individual lessons, a lot of clinics down there. People are getting really excited, and it's good for people that are either not a part of a team, but they want to come down and play. They can come and join a clinic, and it's great. So a lot of participation that way. We host on-site bocce tournaments for league players. We have like we said, the United States Bocce Federation tournaments, fundraisers, and private rental events. Lots of baby showers and some weddings, things like that. And then Brian's going to talk about our financials.
And essentially, you can see some of the dip we had in 2020, as well as 2021 operational income. We compensated by cutting the expenses quite a bit. That's primarily staff. And so because we weren't running night leagues, we didn't have to have staff on board in order to cover that. And the COVID relief income was a big help. Also on the income, we also had that fundraiser that we ran in 2020, and a fair amount of the money came in also in 2021. And so we got community support within our player community. So a bit of a dip in 2020, but we're strong foundation this year. In 2020 with that 62,000. And we're looking solid coming into this year now that we have our leagues back up to full speed. I guess I would just say, in general, there's a lot of excitement going on right now at the bocce courts. There's just a certain level of energy. In particular, with Jessica doing a number of these classes, she's an excellent teacher. She's brought in people to teach them how to shoot, have teams come in to do strategy lessons. And it's been exciting to see the sort of enthusiasm people pick up in those classes. They then come down for day use. We're available for open play during the days when we're not in league. And it's just been great to see people come in then to practice the strategies and practice the skills that they learned in some of the classes. In addition, with her social media skills, we've been out on Nextdoor and Facebook, et cetera, and been able to attract quite a few teams. So that's how we've managed to fill up. We've got a lot of new blood coming into the courts.
We actually were down 16 teams, 3 morning league and 13 night leagues. So I had to do a lot of outreach. So Nextdoor and Facebook, we got a huge amount of, a lot of our neighbors But we have a ton of new people coming in, a lot of younger people, which is great to keep it going. So we're very excited about that.
Yeah. So we're pleased to partner with the city of San Rafael. I live about 2 blocks away from the courts.
Me
I
too.
think when you look at this, when you look at the space that we're taking out of the park, I think this is incredible utilization of the city's assets. And there's just a sense of community and a sense of, well, that's it. I mean, I'm a recently retired individual. I got involved with bocce, and it's just a great way to network and to build friendships within the community. So, any questions?
What's the waiting list for the leagues these days? I know it's people are always talking about trying to get in and trying to be a part of it.
Yeah, we had I just published the schedules today, so let's hope nobody else drops out. One dropped out this morning, and I had to call my wait list, the first one on, and they got in, and it's a group of teachers from Redwood High School, so they're very excited. As far as teams go, it's a wait list. It's about 5 teams. But we could work something out, Mark, you know? Anybody else?
I think you guys are awesome. This is just a great asset to our community, and I'm always amazed by your report and so impressed at your financial solvency and your community building, and keep at it, please.
So I get one quick question in regards. Are you having any issues? I mean, I know at one time you were having issues with some of the homeless and the like in the area. Are those issues still occurring, or have they been mitigated in some way?
Well, it's not as bad since the B Street project or team put in the, the park there. It's definitely not as bad. We get some things that, people that happen in the park, but I mean, I honestly think it's at least 85% better. So we do have some security cameras at night, and I've got signs. You've probably seen it. I've got signs on the the outside of the gates, so it kind of deters people, anyways. So I haven't had people jumping I had one jump the fence. Otherwise, no, I feel much more safe there than I ever did. Great. And I have a lot of staff working at night, so it's been nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, can we get?
I have a quick question. First, I want to comment. Thank you. Great report. We really appreciate you doing the work that you do. Your website looks great also.
Hey, thanks.
And there was a question about sufficient parking some years ago, but has that sort of been resolved, or how are you guys managing that, given that it's so limited parking there?
Good question. We have not solved that as far as being able to add additional parking. Mm-hmm. We do have some blueprints that were drawn up years ago about that, but that's not really, nothing's been put into works. Basically, I think some players are a lot of them are carpooling together because they come as a team, which I've encouraged. I made a big point last night, just so everybody knows, because we had our captain's meeting at the community center last night, of paying attention to the sign at the community center so that they do not park there if the bocce sign is there. So I think finally we're getting there with it, but we'll see. Otherwise, it seems that we got a lot of neighbors also that are joining teams. So that was part of my outreach with Nextdoor is to bring in the neighborhood. So we're not getting people necessarily coming from the city and coming from all over, and that cuts down on the parking as well.
Great.
Yeah.
I do live about 2 blocks away, and as I'm walking to the courts, I'll see people parking in front of my house.
Yeah.
And so we'll walk to the courts together.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Can I call for a motion for us to accept this report from the bocce?
I can move. Becky, is there any public feedback on this item?
We do have one attendee. So if you're watching this meeting through Zoom, please select the participants button and select raise hand if you wish to speak. When it is your turn to speak, you will be notified by the host inviting you to participate. Once you are unmuted, you will have 3 minutes to provide your feedback. I am not seeing a raised hand. Okay, so Stacy, we had a motion, is that correct?
Yes, I'll move to accept the report.
Second.
All right, Commissioner Cabrales.
Yes.
Chair Emerson.
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez.
Yes.
Commissioner Lauman.
Yes.
Commissioner Machado.
Yes.
And Commissioner Sandoval.
Yes.
All right, motion passed. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone. So our next item on the agenda is, are there any reports from commissioners? Any comments, anything? Or wait, did I miss something?
I was just waving
They're
goodbye.
just saying goodbye.
Oh, bye-bye.
Bye.
Any commission reports? Anybody want to comment on anything? Ariel?
Santa Fe Little League started last week, and just want to say thanks. Albert Park looks great. That's where one of my kids is playing this year, and it's fun to be over in that area every Saturday morning. It looks good. So thanks, Parks team or Public Works or whoever's working on that.
Any other comments? One thing I want to comment on is I want the city to look into the mixed use agreements at the schools and to see whether those schools are going to open as regular play areas for kids, because they've been closed due to COVID, and I'm not sure why they're not reopening at this time. So that's something I want to just put out there so that we can get a status on whether the campuses are going to be open at the schools so kids can play.
They're closing more and more.
Anecdotally, we know that, but I don't know if there's like a policy decision behind that, or
the district is intentionally fencing and closing campuses for liability reasons. That's what our principal told us at Sun Valley Elementary. And it coincides with the building of the fences and stuff for all sorts of reasons. But yes, it is going to impact, I think, available park space for children in this, or adults, whoever wants to play. So yeah, I do think it's intentional. That's my understanding.
Well, it'd be good to get some.
And with regards to mixed use, yeah, I think it's going to become even more important. I don't know that process.
So we'll be glad to reach out to the San Rafael City Schools, because that sounds like the schools that you're talking about. We have a representative on the Park and Recreation Master Plan Steering Committee who oversees facilities, so I'm sure he would know all the information there is to know about that. But just so you also know, the city does not have a joint use agreement with either of the school districts. It's very unusual, but we don't. And what that usually does is it says that a school is, first priority is school, but after hours it becomes a community resource and therefore becomes a park. And in many cities, you have a joint use park attached to a school. In newer areas, they build schools usually with an agreement with a city. Often land is very valuable and they don't have enough space for open turf areas, and they often will go into an agreement, a JPA with the city when they are requesting a new school to be built. So the park serves to support the school during school hours, and then it reverts to a public park during non-school hours. As far as I know, we don't have any of those situations, but we do not have a joint use agreement. And that might be a recommendation that comes through the Park and Rec Master Plan. So, but Chair Emerson, we will find out more information for you and the rest of the commission.
Thank you. I think that would be most welcome. Any other updates from the commissioners? Anything they want to share? How is this spring summer event looking on the horizon? Catherine and Susan, is it gonna?
I believe Commissioner Cabrales has a meaty report.
Yeah, I was just going to report that the steering committee, we had our first kickoff meeting for the master plan, for the Parks and Rec master plan. Commissioner Sandoval was there, and Catherine and Susan were there. And looks like the survey is going to be coming out pretty soon to the public. And so definitely spread that around to friends and family as much as possible, and post it on Nextdoor or whatever it takes, like, to get the, more feedback, the better, I think is really what we're looking for. And I think the first community meeting will be March 30th at the San Rafael Community Center. So I'm planning to be there. And I think if you can make it, I think it'd probably be pretty interesting for anyone on the commission to get to be there and just sort of see what the turnout is.
What time is it at?
I believe it's 6. Is that right?
That's correct.
And it's at Pickleweed or
San Rafael? This one's at San Rafael.
Okay.
Then there'll be another one later on in the schedule that's going to be in Spanish at Pickleweed, coming in April, I think, at some point.
Can you restate the date, please?
Sorry, what did you say, Commissioner Lohman?
What was the date?
For March the San Rafael Community Center one is on March 30th. So two Wednesdays from now.
And just another plug for that, since a park and recreation master plan doesn't come around very often. It hasn't come around often at all for San Rafael. I think there was one about, I don't know, I think Catherine and I found it
74.
Yeah, it's younger than me, but it's cool. But anyway, it's going to be a while before it comes around again. Just being a part of the community workshop is really insightful to see the process in action. So we really encourage you to attend at least one.
Yeah, and as Commissioner Cabrales mentioned, we'll have the one March 30th at San Rafael Community Center, and then we're going to hold a second one. It's looking like it's going to be April 20th at the Borough Community Center, and it's going to be similar content, but it'll be held in Spanish and be more tailored for that community. We're working with the Canal Alliance and Voces del Canal to really make sure it's an event that builds strong relationships, gets people to come out, gets people feeling comfortable. So we're intentionally designing that one a little bit differently. But then after that, there will be 2 more follow-up meetings, one at the Terra Linda Community Center, putting me on the spot. I believe it's June 6th. I need to pull up the website to be certain. And then another, actually, I have the website up, so I can say for certain. So the next one would be at, June 2nd at the Terra Linda Community Center. And then the final community meeting, we're planning to hold it virtually because that one will be more of a report out on the plan, less interaction. And we figured, just in this day of Zoom, it's important to provide a virtual option for people to participate as well. So those are the community meetings. And then of course we'll have the steering committee meetings and presentations to the Park and Rec Commission, which are other opportunities for community to come and listen and learn. So.
And just to clarify, Commissioner Cabrales mentioned the survey. There's 2 elements and we call them similar things, and it gets very confusing. There was a statistically valid survey that was conducted that's already concluded. It's already happened. And then what is going to happen next is there's going to be a questionnaire, and the questionnaire is almost a carbon copy of what that statistically valid survey is, but everyone can take it. And so as soon as that has been, it's being revised, but as soon as it's been finalized, we will make sure to send that link to you so you can forward it to all the different groups and individuals. Anyone can do it. Children can do it. And on our website, Catherine just mentioned, she's done an incredible job working with our marketing coordinator to create a web page for the Park and Rec Master Plan. So if you go to the city's website and you enter Park and Rec Master Plan, it's going to come up, and all that information and the link to the questionnaire and all that information about meetings and summary notes and all that are going to be located there. So
yeah, and the questionnaire will run from March 30th through May 20th. And during that time, that, you know, I mean, the community meetings are great and we hope to get a lot of attendance, but that's where we're really gonna hope to get a large number of people participating and providing feedback. So we're also gonna be doing a few intercept events. We're gonna go to the Heads Up Carnival for the Santa Fe City Schools. We're gonna go to the Sunday Farmers Market at the Civic Center. We're hoping to go to Dining Under the Lights. We kind of need to see what that's going to look like this year. So there's a lot of focus is going to go into. You should be hopefully next week receiving a little postcard in the mail that says Park and Rec Master Plan is coming. Go to the website to learn about the community meetings and questionnaire. So trying to do everything we can to get the word out, get people to participate in the questionnaire, if nothing else. So I don't know, Commissioner Cabrales or Sandoval, if there's anything else from the meeting yesterday.
I would just add, it was a good coalition of different people in the group, I thought. And I was really impressed when we went over the survey and their suggestions.
And a copy of the steering committee is also on the city's website, so you can see how diverse it really is and what type of groups it includes. It's not, it really encompasses a variety of different areas of individuals that either support or provide programs and services in alignment with the city. So take a look at that. I think you'll be really impressed, but both commissioners just spoke to it, but it was a highly successful steering committee meeting yesterday. Really thoughtful input, really smart members and you know, representatives and alternates. So we couldn't be luckier.
Yeah, and I will say I was impressed because when they were introducing themselves, they're like, "Oh, I'm representing this group, but I also am involved in this group and this group." And it was so, you know, each representative really brought a lot to the group. So it's exciting.
Can I ask that we agendaize this item as its own item for our meetings moving forward, so we make sure that we allow for discussion and public comment that might come out from our community? I realize that it's sort of implicit in other matters, but I'd like to just see it as a separate, like just a status update on the master plan.
So it is actually.
Oh, it is? I missed it. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I actually thought you were doing like a little promo for us, like, you know, like,
okay.
A teaser, like, so it is in your work plan of when those updates are being brought.
Okay, awesome.
Besides our just monthly updates, you're going to get a full presentation and a lot of information for you to digest at certain times throughout the year. And it is in your work plan. I can't remember off the top of my head when the first one is, but I believe it comes up in summer. Maybe Catherine,
yeah, I guess what I'm saying, besides the formal sort of presentation, like just to have it as, you know, item 7, past, you know, master plan update, if that works for everyone, just a suggestion.
Yeah, it will be part of the agenda every meeting, no matter what. Absolutely.
Well, it's great. I'm excited that it started. Sounds like you got a good group, and yeah, it's only been what, 40 years? How many? 45.
Yeah.
Master plan. What?
When I was getting ready to do this, I was reading the master plans of other, you know, cities, and we happened to be in Dublin doing something, and I found their sports complex, and like I spent like an hour. I felt like doing reconnaissance, like looking at like, oh, this is the sports complex, and what, you know, just it's kind of interesting to see really what's out there and what's possible. So I'm hoping that we get a lot of good feedback of new, you know, things that people want, and it can make a huge difference in the future. So I'm really excited that that it's happening and to be a part of it.
It is kind of exciting when you've looked at other park and recreation master plans, and then you go visit those cities and you go, they actually did it. You see the fruits of their labor. And I'm just going to call out Damien. He's smiling because he used to work for the city of Dublin. So, and they built a huge water park that was part of their park and rec master plan as well. And he'll tell you firsthand, they built it and they came. So it does happen.
They're expanding. They have this ginormous facility and now they're making like twice as big. When I was out there, of soccer fields and baseball fields and, yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, the only other thing is just the update on how things are progressing with the library. I know you have been informing us and it goes to the city council, but it'd be just nice to know a little bit more about where that stands right now.
I will be glad to give you with an update, but I think we hijacked your commission report out. So I'm not sure if all the commissioners got a chance to speak before we took it. I'm sorry.
Any more commissioner reports? Do we have any more public comment?
Yes, we do have one. We do have one attendee, so I'll go ahead and read. If you are watching this meeting through Zoom, please select the participants button and select raised hand if you wish to speak. When it is your turn to speak, you will be notified by the host inviting you to participate. You will have 3 minutes to provide your comments once unmuted. And I do not see a raised hand here. So we can continue.
All right, let's move on to the staff comments.
I know Catherine probably has a lot, so I'll just start with the library planning process. So we got the initial feedback back from the survey that was conducted to find out how much community support there was for a tax measure in regards to a variety of items, including libraries, fixing libraries, building new libraries. Also, because it's a general tax measure that's being considered, it is a very diverse, or I should say, has a large menu of options. So it also included fixing potholes and improving emergency response times, storm drains, park infrastructure, rec facility infrastructure. It included quite a bit. The results came back not as great as we had hoped. A general tax only needs the majority vote of 50%, but honestly, it hovered in the high 40s overall, not what we were hoping for, but we did get some good information. And that good information was that the community overall supports fixing and repairing and renovating things that you already own versus building new things. So that's huge. And they also would rather have a shorter time period that the tax measure was effective if the city goes forward with it. So at this point, the plan is to talk to a consultant, an election consultant, as well as the research firm to get that feedback, revise kind of the scope of what that would look like, and then go back out to the community and really communicate strongly what this measure would do, and with a lot more detail. And then before we need to submit to the county that we are going to put something on the ballot, do another survey to see if that needle has moved at all for the community, if they feel more supportive now that we've really narrowed the focus and made it much more clear as to the items that we would be soliciting feedback on. So we're just about ready to work with them on that next phase. And if, as we go forward, that next survey would probably happen at the end of June. And then we would know whether or not, based on what we hear from the public, if it's favorable, then the council would make the decision on whether to go ahead and put it on the ballot in fall. I am assuming that if it did not come back favorably, the council might make a different decision and maybe take this time to work on crafting a message that was stronger, and then think about putting it on the ballot 2 years from now when it's a presidential election. So we don't really have a definitive answer yet, but we did get really good information as to what the public is willing to support and really what they're not. And they like the idea of existing in our
investing in our existing infrastructure. So stay tuned. Catherine, do you have anything?
Are you done, Susan? All right. Yeah, I've got just a few things. I mean, I think the Park and Rec Master Plan is definitely a big focus, but we have a lot of other things going on, especially as we're getting closer to summer. So some really good news. We got the, I know I reported that our pool heater was down, but we got the parts and it worked. The pool has been heated and we've got the orcas are now in there with their swim practices, and we're ramping up for summer there. We also at Falkirk, we've got just this last Friday a new show open, the Terra Linda ceramic artists. They have their show up there. It's really amazing. I would definitely encourage you all to attend. It runs from March 11th through April 15th. Our camp registration opened on March 1st, so we're starting to see a lot of applications there, or application signups there. I mentioned we're going to be participating in the Heads Up Festival at Santa Fe City Schools. So part of it will be trying to get feedback on the Park and Rec Master Plan, but a lot of it will also be promoting our programs for the kids. And then I wanted to follow up on a little thing, not a little thing, but since you all weighed in on our scholarship policy, we have been promoting that more. It has been, I would say the number of applicants we're getting is still pretty low, although we are seeing more adult applicants, which is great, since prior it was only offered to youth before we kind of made the changes last summer. So we are seeing adults taking advantage of it, and it's going to be included in the activities guide for the summer programming. So we're hoping to see more people come through with that. So I just kind of wanted to give you a little update. We still have plenty of money in there. So if anybody ever asks, please direct them there. We've got it on different places on our website. It's on our class page. It's on our community gardens page. It's going to be on the activities guide, but just wanted to say we've got quite a bit of money and not that many applicants yet. So I think that's about, I'm sure there's a lot more that I'm missing. I know all of the community centers are just continuing to ramp up, but that's what I've got for the moment.
I think she forgot one slight thing, but I'll give an update. Oh, do you remember what it is?
There you go.
Okay. The recruitment for the assistant director has concluded, and there is a candidate that's moving forward in the process. And hopefully, if everything goes according to plan, we will have a soon-to-be announcement for you of when that individual will be starting. We're hoping that they will be starting in May. And my last day will be Friday the 13th in May. And so it'll be a nice transition. So keep our fingers crossed, and hopefully everything will go as planned. That's it.
Yeah, any questions or?
Does anyone have any questions for staff? All right. I'm going to say thank you to everyone. We're going to officially adjourn the meeting at 7:39 p.m. and we will meet again on April 21st.
Public comment on our...
Oh wait, public comment. Yes, of course.
Thank you, Chair. We do still have one person in the audience, so I will go ahead and read here. If you are watching this meeting through Zoom, please select the participants button and select raise hand if you wish to speak. When it is your turn, you will be notified by the host inviting you to participate. Once you are unmuted, you will have 3 minutes to provide your comments. And I do not see a raised hand here.
So when do you all anticipate an in-person option for this meeting?
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have mentioned that to you. So the council at this point looks like their very first meeting will be Monday, April 18th. And we're letting them kind of lead by example. So we could very likely be meeting in April in person or in May. So could be happening sooner rather than later.
Well, I look forward to in-person meetings. And thanks, everyone. Have a good evening. Thank you
Thanks,
for
Sharon.
the dialogue.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
See y'all.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, staff. Appreciate you.
Thank you.